I'm Tracy with Spilling the Tea, and I had such a fun day with Booth Parker. Come watch as we talk about the best tips for starting out your new year right. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
It's always fun. I mean, I think our energy just kind of feed off of each other.
I know. Isn't it funny that we had to come actually sit down where we were supposed to be because we were getting started elsewhere.
I know. We could have had a whole podcast over there before the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to talk about just the new year as we prepare for the new year.
Okay.
And tell me, because I look up to you, truly. I look up to you in so many ways. So share with me some of your tips for getting ready.
For getting ready for the new year. So I don't like my Christmas to be stressful. So I'm really kind of planned out and organized where my tree often goes up before Thanksgiving, unless I'm hosting Thanksgiving. And I try to get my shopping done really early so that I can truly just enjoy the Christmas season and not be stressed. But at the same time, slowing down and enjoying the Christmas season lets me kind of focus on the new year that's coming right around the corner. Christmas is the season of hope, and it really helps me get my mindset for great things in the new year, and then just being still and thinking about how I'm going to go about them when the new year gets started.
So just in that little paragraph, there's so much wisdom in that. First of all, you talked about being still. And tell me what that means to you. Like, what happens when you're still?
I like to have my still time, as I call it, first thing in the morning, over coffee or tea, usually by myself. I'll often have a dog or six underfoot. But,
a dog or six?
Underfoot. But I love to sit on my porch, weather permitting, and just truly sit there and just take it in, have time to think about all my blessings and what I'm grateful for, and not to take any of that for granted as I try to go accomplish new things and achieve new things and stuff like that. So just really just try to kind of just focus on just letting it all sink in a little bit and not being hurried.
It's so true. And I think in today's world, it's very easy to hurry, and it's very easy to forget our blessings. And that's one of the things that I share with people is they'll often say, well, okay, Tracy, how do you wake up that way every day? And I don't wake up that way every day. Every day, not every day, but many days I wake up and I kind of dread the day, or I, am worried or fearful, like all those same emotions that plague all of us, really. But I do exactly what you just said. I start before my feet hit the ground with gratitude. And I think that's one of the things we really have in common, and why we connected. One of the reasons why we've connected is that, where our lives haven't been perfect. They haven't been by any means just like anyone, right? But it's a choice.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a choice and on your mindset. You mentioned that too. Like, mindset is so important. What kinds of things do you do besides your quiet? What'd you call it?
My still time, my quiet time. So
I have that too, and it's. I think it's key to being healthy, really. And I think also in your quiet time, for me, anyways, it helps me to fill back up, so that I can be all those things to everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You've got to, it's kind of like the, when you're on an airplane, they say if you're with a small child to put your oxygen mask on first before you help the child. And the premise behind that is because you're no good to the child if you've passed out from lack of oxygen. So I kind of try to think about that with taking care of my family and even with work and everything like that. If I don't take care of myself so that I can be my best self, I'm not going to be as valuable to them as I want to be.
It's so true. Do you know that, so every day I look forward to seeing your stories on Instagram. So, and I will sometimes, how like when you click on Instagram and there's all those little holes that are little circles at the top, I'll go like this and I look for yours because it reminds me that very thing. And I never thought about it until you just said it, but it reminds me because I'll see you on the porch and I'll be like, I'll think to myself, you need to slow down, Tracy. You need to take a deep breath in. You need to appreciate, because you remind people, which is, to me, one of the powerful things about social media is that we get to be a reminder to people of how to live our best life.
Yep.
And you do such an epic job at that. Like, you really do.
I try to, when I think social media, I think it's so easy to get caught up in the comparison trap on social media. And I know I did when it first came out, especially I was, a mom with a young child, and there was just so much thrown in your face that you had never really been exposed to even before, like a whole new set of expectations. And one thing that I do like about social media is you can choose what you consume on there.
Good point.
So if you choose to follow people that inspire you and things like that, then you will become what you consume. It's just like what you eat. If you eat a bunch of junk food, you're not going to be super healthy. So, but if you choose to follow people that make you feel less than because you're never going to be as skinny as them or as rich as them or any of these things, every time you get on social media, it's going to bring you down.
Wow.
And I was intentional about not following accounts. If I found an account that, maybe one time I kind of caught myself thinking negatively, okay, maybe I'm just having a bad mindset day. But if I saw that account, there was multiple times where it brought me down, I was like, I don't need to follow that account. It's not good for me. And I just try to be really, really intentional on which accounts I follow. And especially on Instagram. Instagram, I don't do a lot of personal on there. I really use it for inspiration. Mm-hmm. And I use, Facebook to keep up with friends and their kids and things like that. So I kind of have them delineated a little bit. But I think if you let yourself get exposed to too much of the negative you don't even realize it sometimes until it's brought you down. You've just got to cut it out.
I think that's so powerful because, so on my Facebook, if someone friends me, I automatically, unless they're just cray, I'll accept it. But what I have done is I have figured out, my son helped me figure out how to do this. My news feed is just exactly what you said. My news feed is only the things I want to see.
Right.
So because I use social media for motivation and to give hope and to inspire and to spread joy and, so there's a lot of haters out there about social media. But for me, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Because of that, I do exactly that. And I bet you people that live a joyful life and an inspired life are just like us in that way. Mm-hmm. And I've never had this conversation with anybody, but it's really powerful if you think about it. So if you allow yourself, to consume junk, that what goes in is going to come out. Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I even caught myself, I would do Instagram in the morning. I like to post my story and do things like that. And I would consume some of these inspiring pages I follow, good morning quotes, things of that nature. And then I would find myself going over to Facebook, and even though it was supposed to be, just the personal stuff, there would still be drama.
Right.
And I actually deleted Facebook from my phone.
You did?
I did.
Do you still have it deleted from your phone?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's inspiring.
So I only check it when I'm sitting like at my desk, like if I'm stopping for a snack or something, I'll check it and I'll scroll through, and I just do that. But I deleted Facebook from my phone.
That is so
And it was funny because the morning I did it, I found myself, I had just had my still time and I was in this great mindset, and then I'm scrolling through and there's, this drama going on. And it was a topic that I have strong feelings on, and I'm reading comments, and there's people that I like making comments that make me angry.
Right.
And I just found myself like completely losing all the goodness I had just put in myself for the day. And I was like, I'm not subjecting myself to this. It's not productive. And so I took that little icon and I drug it to the little trash can and I put my phone down.
I am so
and I did another devotional for the day, and I just picked up.
So reading for me is a lot the same. So I started reading motivational books probably like maybe 10 years ago, mostly self-help, like business-minded books. And people think I'm crazy because on average I'll read about 40 books a year. But I choose books that I know are going to give me some sort of nugget. Yeah. Actually, I don't know that, but I read them with the intention of finding the nugget.
Yeah.
That's the truth. So on average I read about 40 self-help books a year. And what I love about it is it's generally the same types of things. that you will, and same when you through social media, like when you learn that it's the same principles, over and over. Like, so if you're going to live a great life, like a grand life where you wake up and you're going to make the most of every single day, we're going to be the best versions of ourselves, then you find that those kinds of books or that those kinds of podcasts or whatever it's the same message, just told in a different way.
Yeah. It's everybody's story of living that kind of lifestyle.
Stories.
Is what it is. Yeah.
Which I think are powerful. That's the whole point of Esther T.
Because everybody's journey is a little different. Not everybody's best self is the same. Mine is different from yours. It's different from the next person. So that's the story in it. And we can take little tidbits from other people's journeys to help our own, even though the journeys are a little different. Yeah, I love books like that too.
Me too.
I read a lot of them, and they're just very inspiring. So
yeah, I think anything that we can do. So I had to help ourselves become a better version of ourselves. So I met with Joseph Michelli earlier. We did a podcast with him, and I can't wait I think I told you this before, I would love to connect the two of you, because he's a psychologist, first of all, but he's just such a light to the world. And one of the things he said was that he was using the example of a mentor of his, and the mentor said to him, well, what is it that you're aspiring towards? And he said, well, I'm not aspiring towards perfection, because why would I? Nobody's perfect. And he went down this whole path, and he was like, then what are you aspiring towards? And he said it made him think differently. It made him realize that it's not that we all know, like when you hear somebody say perfection, okay, there is no such thing except for Jesus. Like,
right.
Well, there is nothing, nobody has walked the face of the earth perfect. But I love what he said, because every day I think we should raise the bar higher. So just because we're not striving for perfection doesn't mean we shouldn't raise the bar higher and strive more for, and it really is sort of perfection that we're striving for. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of taboo. People don't want to think about that, but it's true, because why not?
Right.
You've done that with your life. Like,
well, I mean, striving, there's nothing wrong with striving.
That's the point.
It
made me think today. I was like, that's a different mindset.
If that's what you're striving for, you're going to deliver good things.
Oh, I love it.
So.
And excellence, you find excellence along the way. And basically what his mentor told him was, if you're not striving for perfection, then you are going to be mediocre.
That hurts.
That's an ouch moment, right?
Yeah.
And I think the quickest way to be to mediocrity is complacency.
Absolutely.
So, and I know there's a time in my life when I was super complacent, and so I think every day is just, that's one of the things I love. I love so many things about you, but that's one of the things I really love, is that every day, I feel like every day you're pushing to be a better Booth.
Yeah. And I mean, we all get stuck in ruts sometimes, that we have personal things going on, life, whatever, but we have ruts we get into. And it's funny, my sister-in-law especially makes fun of me how much I love to make a list of things. And she actually gave me this little journal one time that says I love to make lists. And it was this whole journal of all little tick boxes. So it was great. And of course I filled it up. But I digress. So, but that's where the little habits come in. And there's some really good self-help books on habits as well. But if you get in that complacent mode, you get unmotivated.
Wow.
So if you'll make that daily little habit list and just make yourself show up, I got to check the boxes off. You might not do them perfectly, but you're doing. So you're still striving, right? So if you do your habits, just stay in your habits, those little daily habits every day, even if you're not in a great mindset because of life going on, you're still in your journey of achieving. So
speaking of that, you shared with me earlier that you have a tool for that.
I do. I have this little freebie on my website, and you can just download it and print it. And it's for 1 month, and it has 31 days across the top, and it has as many habits as you want to put on the side, because you could print multiple copies if you really had a lot. But it's just the perfect little way, and you could hang it, on your bathroom mirror or stick it in your journal or anything like that. And, do little things like go on a 20-minute walk, or eat 6 to 8 servings of fruits and veggies. Put all these little things that add up to great things on that habit list. That list does not have to be write 50 pages of a book today, you know? It could be write 5 pages of a book today. the habit list has to be realistic. If you expect more from yourself than is humanly possible in a day, you're just going to let yourself down.
It's true, and you feel like a failure, and then you don't try. You don't try again.
Exactly.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
You know, I've set the goal so high that when I'm failing day after day after day, after a certain amount of time, you're like, why even try? You know? Okay, so I love that checklist. Have you read, and it made me think about this book, The Slight Edge. Have you ever read it?
I've not read that.
I'm going to get it for you.
Okay.
But that's what it's about. It's about these tiny little habits.
Yeah.
And it was one of the books that really changed me because it resonated, because I was the person that if I see a piece of trash on the road, I'm going to pick it up.
Right.
I'm the person that if the grocery cart is in the middle of the aisleway, I'm not going to leave it. And if I don't feel good and I'm sick, I'm still going to walk it back up to the front. And it's those little tiny repetitive things making your bed every day. Like, it sounds so silly, like
but
picking up the towel.
There are life choices that add up to big things.
They do, because then you start to create these habits of excellence, really. And then, just like we were talking about, you raise the bar higher and higher and higher for yourself. So that's a great way. Let's just talk about like going into the new year. So you talked about like with Christmas, you like for it to not be stressful.
Yes.
And I do too, because there's many years when I self-inflicted made it, super stressful because I set these like way too many expectations, tried to plan too many things. And at a certain point, like when my kids were little, I was trying to please everyone else.
Right.
Going from place to place to place to place until finally I just realized, you know what? We're going to create memories at home. And we have this one tradition I want to share with you that I love. So on Christmas Eve, and my friend Ruth, who is in Alabama, and she's battling cancer right now. So if you would say a prayer for her.
Definitely.
But she did this with her kids, and they do gingerbread houses on Christmas Eve.
Fun.
And it's fun and they don't have traditional food. So like she'll do like lasagna or something where, you can do it ahead of time and you can sit down. And so we started doing that instead of running all over the place like a crazy person. We actually enjoy Christmas Eve. And then we're not exhausted on Christmas Day.
Yeah. And it's hard. And I know when my son was young, especially, like we were getting, torn by family because he was the only grandchild on either side. And so everybody wanted
to see
a big piece,
right.
And it was really hard and stressful for us as the parents because we weren't even getting the big piece because we were trying to
please everybody
and Christmas Eve was here and I mean just all over the place, and it just gets really stressful, and that's not what it's about. And we've really even scaled back the whole gift piece. We do Christmas really small now compared to what I was used to, and that's just what we prefer because we don't need for anything, and there's no need to buy things you don't need.
It's
like
true.
that's a big thing. I obviously teach that stuff like that in my financial classes, but I have learned over the years that stuff will stress you out more than anything.
It's so true.
And
it's memories, making memories.
Right. It's the time,
it's
the experience.
The time, and I wish like anything that I could go back, because I would have done things a little bit differently as far as time. I do think that I learned pretty quickly from losing my parents at a young age the brevity of life. And so making memories has always been important to me with my kids. So we have tons, and my son passed away this last year. And that's what keeps me going, is the memories that we have, like the pictures and the funny times that we have. And we love to sit around and talk about funny things that we've done and fun memories. So
well, amongst the heartache, because it still hurts.
Yeah.
But you have joyful memories, not regretful memories.
Yes.
And that's what I think a lot of people don't focus on until they realize that they've not focused on them, and sometimes it's too late, sometimes it's not. But if you get so caught up in just that having to be everything to everyone and be everywhere, or feeling like you have to be everywhere to be seen, or the whole, comparing yourself to others thing that I mentioned earlier, it just loses the whole meaning of Christmas, and then you lose out on all these really joyful experiences
That's
that become
true.
the memories, you know.
Let's talk about comparison for a minute. That's something that I haven't talked about with anybody. And I do think that that's an important thing because I think especially women, and I might be wrong about this, maybe men too, but especially women, I know that there are moments and times that I will often worry about what someone else thinks as I've gotten further in my walk with the Lord, and also as I've become more rooted in who I am as a person. I care less and less about that.
Right.
You know, but sometimes I get my feelings hurt because someone will pass judgment when they don't even know, you know. But what is it, have you ever struggled with comparison?
I have. I was always that person who fulfilled everyone's expectations except for my own.
Wow.
To the point of like followed a career because it was what made my parents, or especially my dad, happy. He wanted me working with him. I followed that path. I didn't enjoy it a day in my life doing it, but I took satisfaction in the pleasing. And I recognize now how detrimental that was to me. It wasn't to anyone else, you know, because they were getting the best version of me because I was completely focused on their needs. But when I became a mom, then I really realized that my son was the one who needed me most. And I really had to start trying to put up some boundaries. And because I had let it go on my whole life, it's really hard to set a boundary when the precedent has been set. You know, it's really hard to change that. And you know, and I struggled in high school. I struggled with, you know, weight and eating disorders and stuff like that. I was very much so into comparison of appearance.
It's
and
so
things
so
like
I look
that.
at you and I'm like, you're so beautiful.
Oh, you're sweet.
And I would have never guessed that. I struggled with weight too. I weighed 307 pounds at a certain point. And I just made a decision, you know? So, okay. Oh, this is so interesting. Yeah. Okay. Because I think it's important for people to see that side of us, you know?
Yeah. And I'm like you, as I have, my faith has gotten stronger, my confidence has gotten stronger. It's really amazing how much strengthening your faith strengthens your confidence in yourself, because you're really discovering who you are.
It's so true.
When that occurs. And, you know, confidence it's a game changer. It really is. And, you know, it's funny, like, as we're talking about this, like, I had someone send me a message today on Instagram that I looked frumpy. And, you know,
people are so mean.
The me, you know, even 10 years ago, like, would have, like, dropped everything I was doing and gone for a run and starved myself for 3 days.
Right.
You know? And when I got it, I almost pulled through Dairy Queen and got a milkshake. You know? Like, I mean, you know, like, because
here's to being frumpy.
Because I know who I am and the people that I love
and you're not
love
frumpy,
me.
by the way.
Oh, thank you. So, you know, like, you just get to a point where, you know, people that have negative opinions, they don't get to you anymore.
It's
true.
true.
It's their opinions, and you know, we never know what someone else is going through as well, right?
I really, you know, just in my own personal life, as I've made some major mistakes throughout it, I look back on that now, and instead of looking back on it with regret, it was a pastor who told me one time, he was like, Tracy, and this was not very long ago, he was like, you know, when you ask for forgiveness, that sin is cast as far from the east as it is to the west. You don't have to carry this anymore. And when he said that to me, I remember just like crying and being like, you know what? You're right. Like, I'm not doing any good. I'm not doing any good wallowing in this or staying in this, because it was one moment in time that was a bad mistake. But getting back up and continuing to move forward and working on ourselves to become better. But the main thing that you said that I love is that your faith and your confidence go hand in hand. And that was another aha moment for me in this conversation, because that's very true. I think when we're rooted and walking in our purpose. Do you feel like you're walking in your purpose at this stage in life?
I'm getting there.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think I'm on the right the right road.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, there's like maybe one more little hill or a little curve or something, but I'm getting there. It's been, the last 5 years have been difficult, and I've really been, rooted in finding that purpose, and sometimes you have to try new things and be like,
that wasn't it.
I thought that was going to be it, but it's not, all growing up, all I ever wanted to be was an architect.
Right.
And that's what I went to school to do. And then I got talked into doing the family business instead. And, a few years ago, I was like, maybe I should re-pursue that, And I went and looked, and it's one of the only degrees out there that you cannot do online. Wow. And my son was about to start high school, and it's 4 very intense years, and I would have had to have moved the whole family. And I'm at a season in life where that wasn't the path I wanted to follow. So I got to fulfill that little bit we had to build a new house, and I drew it and then had it engineered into house plans. So I got my little fix. Yes.
There's other ways, so maybe it wasn't the degree.
Right.
But that's so inspiring to think about.
So that was super fun. And then my husband built the house. So it was probably even better than going and getting the degree at this point, But it fulfilled that part of me that had never gotten fulfilled.
So now, instead of looking back and wondering, do you still have the wonder about whether or not you should have been an architect, or did that fulfill that longing?
I mean, I do think it's a career I could do, and I would love it. But I also know that, at 45, I wouldn't go pursue it until my son graduates college in 3 years. So I would be, early to mid 50s. Would I still be that excited? That later would I rather be doing other things? And I really had to just spend a lot of time
thinking about that.
So
it's a sacrifice, just like anything.
It's definitely a sacrifice. And, I've realized that there's probably other things my husband and I could maybe do that would keep fulfilling that little void. But I was amazed at how much I was fulfilled by just doing that house for us, because I always just wanted to show I knew I could do it, and
it was like an internal challenge almost.
It was. And then, there were some tricky things to do. We didn't want to cut down trees on this lot. So my first sketch, this is where I kind of put the cart before the horse, but I got so excited that I drew this first sketch that I loved. And then we went and measured the trees. I should have measured the trees first. Did not. So then I kind of had to start over, but it was a really seamless process. So I think it was in October that I made the first set of sketches, and we poured the foundation in February.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And if you would have hired somebody, it probably would have taken a whole lot longer.
And it was during, it was in, not COVID, following year, 2021. So February 21, we broke ground. And with all of the delays and everything, we were still complete by end of year.
Wow. That is so fun. That is a huge accomplishment.
So it felt like I did it, and we did such a great job with it, and it turned out amazing, and we're so happy with it. So you just have to if you have little pieces that you regret not doing in life, you don't have to do the huge thing to fill that part of you. And that I've really learned that by doing this house. And any other little things I've wanted to accomplish, or big things I've wanted to accomplish, I'm looking at paths to fulfill them without them maybe being the traditional way of fulfilling them.
I love that. Okay. You know what else? Okay, so as you were talking, I was thinking about this. So maybe in the grand scheme of life, maybe our purpose isn't just one big thing.
Right. I don't think it is.
Woo! That gave me the chills.
I want to be able to do, I love to cook and provide for my husband and son. Cooking, I guess, is my love language. I don't even know if that is one of the 5 love languages. I don't think it is. But
we need to add it if it's not.
We need to add it because it's mine. But I love to do that. But then I also, love to go teach high school kids, finance, so that they make smart decisions and stuff. So that's very different.
Yes.
But they're both, to me, purposes that I'm here for, as well as other things. But I'm just using some examples that are different, and I think all of those different things wrap up to be one big purpose, I guess.
I think that for me, anyways, in the end, I want to be able to look back. I was talking earlier about my experience with hospice. So I had this grand idea. So I did the opposite of you. So my dad was very strong-willed, and he had an oil company, and they manufactured pipe fittings for oil and chemical plants. And I was the oldest, and his expectation was that I go to college and come back and help run the company. And I had this, I want to be a nurse and go save the world, Florence Nightingale dream. And he thought it was crazy until he got sick. And then he was very grateful that I was a nurse. So it kind of came full circle. But it wasn't that he wasn't supportive. He just didn't think it was the right path for me.
Right.
Which is different, right? So I went down the whole nursing path, but I wanted to work in the critical care. I wanted to be an ICU nurse. And I was told from the start that graduate nurses don't start out in ICU, which was kind of like just prodding me. Well, I'm going to be the first, you know?
Right.
So I was like, well, I would ask questions. Well, why? And they said, well, because you need to pay your dues. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And they were like, well, you need to work on the med-surg floor, and you need to change bedpans, and you need to clean up the dirty stuff. And, you know, you need to learn first. Like, you can't just walk right into ICU. And I was like, well, I just didn't accept that, right?
Right.
So I was like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and pay my dues now while I'm in school. So I worked full-time at the hospital as a nurse tech, and they kept pulling me over to hospice. And I didn't like it because my parents had sheltered me from any kind of death. I'd never been to a funeral. We never talked about death. Like, when my grandparents died, we just never talked about it. I mean, it was that kind of thing. Like, they just, I think, just didn't want us to have sadness. And sadness is a part of life. Like, we need to be able to deal with sadness. But anyways, so I kept getting called to hospice, and finally I sat down with a charge nurse, and I was like, I just don't like it. Why do you keep pulling me over here? And she was like, well, to be honest with you, like, the nurses say that the unit is calm when you're over here. And I was thinking to myself, honestly, I mean, I was young. I was thinking, how can I make it not calm so I'd never have to come back here again? But what happened was I would go into these rooms, and I was scared, really, like fearful of what I was seeing, because it was not pretty.
Right.
And so I would sing, and I would pray, and I would treat them like they were awake, and most of them weren't, you know? And so I saw two things. I learned two things about living from watching the dying. One was there were two kinds of people. One was they look back on their life, and I'll never forget this one lady, and she had her loved ones were like gathered around, and they were holding hands, and they were singing a hymn, and literally when she took her last breath, she smiled, like ear to ear smile, like, and I remember thinking, I want that kind of life.
Yeah.
Right? And then I saw people gasp and struggle all the way until the end. And I remember thinking, I don't want that, right? And so I started paying attention to what kinds of people, and listening and asking them questions and getting to know them, the ones that were coherent enough to have conversations. Right. And the ones who were facing the end of their life with dignity and without regret were the ones who walked in their purpose. And what I mean by that is that they knew who they were. They didn't leave anything left unsaid. They all had kind of the same kind of philosophy of life, which is so crazy because you see all walks of life in there, right? But they all had the same, the ones that ended their lives with grace is probably the right word, and love. They were the ones who lived their life without regret.
Right.
Does that make sense?
There's a fulfillment in their heart.
And it was very powerful for me. Unbeknownst to me, you know, it wasn't very long after that both of my parents were in hospice. And so the very thing that I didn't like was the very thing that I got to be appreciative of in their last parts of their life. So I do think it's important for us you do this well, by the way. Like, really well.
What's that?
Everything. I mean, let's just face it. Like, you got it going on. But it's been a morphing, right? Like, you have evolved over time, but you're so good at it. You're stinking good at it.
Oh, you're sweet.
You are.
I don't know, you know, and it's kind of those little things. Like, I don't always feel good at it, and I don't always know what the end goal is, but I just got to keep doing each day, you know, because that fulfillment comes from doing each day. You can't go 364 days of the year doing nothing and try to have one day where you fit it all in and say, I'll be fulfilled for this year.
It's so true.
You know? So if you've just got to do a little bit each day, and that's how you get there. And when I was really going through a hard time, I would just try to focus on something good of each day. And that was moving me forward. And that little bit just kind of kept me going each day.
You know, one other thing that I wanted to talk about was you went to school for finance, right?
I did. I went to NC State originally to go into the architecture school, and then graduated with a business degree with a finance concentration, and then I went back to get my master's in accounting because North Carolina requires 150 hours to sit for the CPA exam. So,
but that wasn't your passion.
No, like numbers just come really easy to me, and that was the path to go into like the family business.
But what I think is so cool is that even though that wasn't what you would have chosen for you, one of the things that you said that you enjoy doing is going to the high school and talking about finance with the youth.
Yeah.
And if you think about like how powerful that is, like that was God.
Right. When it's just like God puts you on the hospice floor.
Yeah.
You know? So it's sometimes the path isn't really up to us to choose,
it's so
right?
True.
And
that's where I was going with this.
Yeah, but it does. But it has a purpose. You know, it has
Yes.
a purpose. And had I not done that piece of education and then worked in a corporate environment for a long time, corporate stuff doesn't really end up in the high school classroom, but had I not done that, I wouldn't be qualified to go help youth. And you know, I do some seminars for retirees and things like that. And
Which is so powerful.
You know,
like, you're helping the youth and you're helping the old, and you're helping them with something that you never wanted to do.
Right.
And that gives me the chills.
Yeah.
That's how Esther was, by the way. So she fulfilled a purpose that no one ever saw coming, right? So, and I think if we allow God to work in our lives, if we just sit back and allow him and say, okay, I pray this prayer every day. Like, just use me just help me be a light. Help me be whatever it is that you want me to be. Help me to change somebody's life if you want me to. Like, use me as a vessel. Think about that. Like, you have been the vessel in so many different avenues, and it's cool to watch.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's what's fun now is that now that I've started doing these things that I really never saw on my. That's why when you ask like the path, like I think I'm on the right one, but there's little turns and detours because these little things have presented themselves that I didn't think about doing, but people think I'm qualified for to go like help others, and I love doing that, and it just keeps, you know, it's true. Like one door opens, another one opens because the opportunities just flow with them, and I mean the difference in things I've done in the last few years versus the 10 years prior, it's crazy to kind of think about, but it's
the difference that you've just sat back and allowed those gifts to come out.
I really have. I've allowed it to evolve. I have found that the things that I tried to push myself weren't really the things that I ended up enjoying or working for me or things like that, but the things that I just allow to come to me are the ones that really bring me fulfillment and then help me grow in other ways. Like
that's a very great, important lesson that you just said right there.
So, and that comes back to the being still. Like
Yes.
you can't force everything. You've just got to let things evolve, and not everybody's timeline is the same. And that's where, you know, patience is important too, and that's not always an easy one.
No, I'm not good at that at all.
So
patience, but I've learned it.
Yeah.
Like I've had to learn it because as much as I don't like being patient, I've been forced to be patient. And in that, and that's that. I believe that is definitely coming from God. Like He's like, I'm going to teach you.
Yeah.
But I have really evolved in learning how to wait. Be still, like the scripture says, be still and know.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself sometimes, just be still, Tracy, be still and know. I hear that voice in my head, which is the Holy Spirit, but I hear it all the time saying, Do you trust me all the way or just 98% of the way? So, okay, you're almost there, but it's that extra 2%. Are you going to really, really lay this at my feet and trust me? And I have to really sit in that sometimes. Like, okay, that's where patience comes in. Yeah. So, okay, so I want you to tell people, because you have a lot of tools out there. You've taken your gifts, and it's not always easy to find those, right? So, like, for instance, when my first podcast came out, I was like frustrated by the fact that, well, how are people going to find it? You know, because you'd be surprised, like, even though, like, we understand social media and we understand where to find things, a lot of people, even in today's world, don't know how to navigate through the system. So I want you to tell people, because there's a lot of tools. What tools do you have, and where do you find them? So
on my website, which a new one is rolling out real soon.
Oh, you have a new website?
Yeah, so it's been really fun redesigning that. So I have some freebies, the little tools like the habit trackers, and then I have some planning guides, like, because I said I like to be organized, the holidays and stuff like that. So I have some planning guides. And then a whole page of recipes. I love to cook. I love to share my recipes. So I post those in my stories a lot, and I typically link the recipe there. And then I've got some new ebooks in the works, and some for meal planning, and then some financial ones. I've had some people request me do some books on, like, how you start a small business and understanding some of those basics. And, you know, I look back with my education, and I kind of take some of that knowledge for granted, that people don't know these things, and they need to.
I could have used those books.
So there's some really good stuff. And then the high school class I teach, I have written my own curriculum. Wow. So I'm hoping to do a little more with that than just using it for myself. So
that's so exciting. So the website, what is the website?
BoothParker.com.
Okay, BoothParker.com.
Yep.
Keep going.
So that has links to the recipes, the freebies, my financial page, and then as the ebooks come out, they get released on there.
So we can find everything Booth on the website. Will link us to all of your
on the new one once it rolls out. So it's supposed to roll out by the first week of January. So
what a great way to start the new year.
Right. Yeah.
I love it. So, okay. Yep. And then do you have any special tips as we're going into the new year? Do you have any special tips that you would recommend? I'm asking for me.
Special tips that I would recommend. I'm not a resolutions kind of person. I feel like, you know, to me a resolution is I'm going to lose weight in the new year.
Right.
But a goal is I'm going to lose 10 pounds in the new year, and this is how I'm going to do it. It goes back to those little daily habits. Yes. I'm going to walk 3 miles a day, or I'm going to eat this every day and not eat this. Like, your habit tracker can be not doing something, like today
that.
I will not do this. So people don't always think about that, but your habit can be making yourself not do something that you're guilty of doing now. A bad habit, like cutting out that bad habit. So that
do you have any bad habits?
I really like wine.
I thought you were going to say chocolate, because that's mine. Like, I really love chocolate. Yeah. You're like, so, I really like wine.
So that's one of mine, though. Like, during the work week, like, especially if I have a lot going, you will not have a glass of wine tonight. You know, like, and I put that on and I get really mad at myself if I can't check something off that list. I'm like, no, I know I could have done that. You know, so. That's
so you're competitive within your own self. Huh?
Very much so.
I am too.
Very much so. So that's what I try to focus on. Like, what is the big picture for the new year? What does that look like to you? And, you know, we're getting ready to go into 2023. So when we get to this time next year, what do you want to be able to look back and know you've done?
Oh,
that's good. And it's kind of like a vision board. It's like your vision board for the year. And you've got to break it down into the little steps to get there, and those little steps start in your day-to-day.
So do you start with the vision first?
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so I've done that in business, but I've never done it in my personal life. So I'm going to take your advice, and I'm going to think about what is the one thing, or maybe there's more than one thing. What is my vision for my accomplishments, or whatever it is, whatever goals is it goals that we're working towards, would you say, or is it?
I mean, I think the word goal can be taken negatively and positively. It's just kind of the way you focus on them. Because if you say your goal was that I'm going to lose 10 pounds and you got to the end of the year and it was 9.5, like you might feel like you failed yourself, like you didn't try hard enough, even though maybe you really did. So I think looking at the big picture of everything you're trying to accomplish and not beating yourself up for little things that don't happen.
I love that because so when I started making changes to my diet, I started small. Honestly. So the first thing that I gave up was soda. And I'm going to share all of this in the new year because people always want to know, like, well, how did you do it? I'm like, well, it wasn't one thing. It was a whole bunch of things. But I started small. I started with, okay, I'm going to give up soda. And then when I started like exercising, when I felt better, I would say like, okay, I'm going to walk a half a mile 3 times a week. So it was attainable goals. And then I had more energy. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to drink, like this last year, my biggest goal was to drink 50 ounces of water by lunch.
That's a good one.
And I get 50 ounces in no matter what. And now I don't have to even try because it became a habit, which is what your goal tracker will do.
Right.
And when you start setting yourself up for these, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, it becomes a habit after a certain amount of time and you don't have to think about it anymore.
Right. I mean, they're little life changes that add up.
You're going to love this book, The Slide Edge.
Yeah, I need to read
because that's
that.
what it is.
Yeah.
It's about little tiny tweaks that get you to that big. It's not anything big. It's little things that get you to the end goal.
It is. And that's how you've got to accomplish them.
It's so fun having you here. We could talk all day.
I know. We could. We could.
Can we do this again?
Of course.
I can't wait because this is so fun. Yeah. Okay, so I love that you've got multiple gifts going on here. You've got your financial wellness is what I'm going to call it. Your tools for people. You've also are there paid things that people can do as well?
So like the ebooks that are rolling out, they're like little self-guided courses, and then I've got a few other things in the works.
Okay,
stay tuned on those.
Stay tuned. Yeah. Okay, and so the main thing is we need to go to the website, and we need to follow you on social media because it's fun. You're like in my group of things, of positive things that I look forward to every day. Yay. So the very thing that you do is what you do for me. So when you go to look for that, I'm going to you to look for that.
Awesome.
So you're motivating.
That's how it's supposed to be.
I know.
It's supposed to reciprocate. And,
you're motivating the motivator.
I like to share because I love everything home. Like, I like to share everything from, financial tips to the recipes to, this is how I like to decorate my Christmas tree kind of stuff. So.
And cute clothes too.
Yeah.
I have to admit, like I've stepped up my game on my clothing, my wardrobe because of you.
Oh,
I have, because I started going to your links. I was like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to buy that because instead of buying 5 other things, I'm going to buy one really good thing. So I've started really just changing the way I think about it.
Well, and it kind of goes back to the habit thing because I did a blog a couple years ago on like these little habits that you need to do every day. And like one of them that's really hard, especially when your kids are young, is like get up and take a shower and put on decent clothes every day. And it's amazing how much doing that changes your mindset, like especially with the whole work from home after COVID, people got really comfy in their yoga pants. And I love my yoga pants, don't get me wrong, they're super comfy. But there's something about getting up, getting dressed, and showing up that will completely change your mindset and your productivity level.
Wow.
Just
have you
doing that.
That's a deep psychological thing, but you know what? I do it every day. Every day I get up but I had the example of a grandmother who did that. She wore her heels and her lips and got fully dressed every day. And I remember it had an impact on me, like watching her. And she was always, I don't know, full of energy.
But thinking back, like did she always present herself as her best self to you?
She really did.
See? Because she showed up for herself by doing that.
Wow. And it's not for others. You're right. Like it's about showing up for yourself. Yeah. Like that is a powerful message right there. That's what I want to leave you guys with today. Show up for you.
That's right. That's right. Because if you show up for yourself, then you're able to show up for the others that need you.
It's been so much fun.
It has been. I've loved it.
I want to keep talking.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to do this more.
Okay, for sure.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
It's been great.
All right.
Okay.
That's a wrap on Spilling the Tea. Stay tuned for our next podcast.